I'm often asked how I teach labs, how I assign labs, how I assess labs. So given these requests, I've decided to make a little bit of a tutorial just with suggestions for analytics labs usage, assignment, and assessment. So first of all, note that some of the labs are only in the print text, others are Connect only. Often the most current ones are in Connect first because of the Evergreen series, and then later will be shown as, will be in the print text or ebook as well. Note that some labs are in Excel, some are in Tableau and in Power BI, and you can kind of choose which ones you want to emphasize depending on your classroom. Sometimes the same lab is done with 3 different tools. So for example, here's the accounts receivable aging for a particular text, and you can decide to do 1 or 2 or 3 depending on what tool you're trying to emphasize. There's also a question of whether it works on a Mac, and to kind of show these various iterations, I want to show you a lab listing. And so this would be a lab listing that would be in your instructor resources or your instructor manual. There is a column, for example, that says, does it work on a Mac? And that's something you're going to want to know. Sometimes there's some functions within Excel that don't work on a Mac. For example, Power BI does not work on a Mac. And so you'll just want to decide how you want to address those. Sometimes you can use a virtual machine or figure out an alternative assignment. And so I'm always working with my students. Again, just to show, for example, here's a similar lab that's in all 3. We mentioned Excel, Tableau, and Power BI, so you can kind of see that variety. So I would always consult that lab listing for the tool, if it's in print or in Connect, and if it works on a Mac, so you can make those decisions. Now the labs are covered almost universally in 2 parts. There's a main lab or a teaching lab, and there's an alternate lab, or sometimes we call it an on your own lab. The main lab is where we have all the step-by-step instructions and have a video supporting it. I generally like to show the main lab in class. I sometimes will have them close their laptops and just watch, and so I can explain the how and the why, and then assign it as homework, and then when they come back to class the next time, then we might extend it if we have time. But they're going to do the main lab, and I usually have some lighter assessment associated with the main lab because everything's there on the screen. They've been able to see it. There is then an alternate lab, which is very similar to the main lab, but it has a different data set and does not now have this step-by-step directions. I consider this a critical part of the lab. The main lab's fine, but everything's given to them, so now they need to do it on their own. And this is where I do most of my student assessment. And so I view them as working together hand in hand. And so you can kind of see how that might work. This is the student view of a lab. And so they're able to see, the lab insight. They're able to see the video that automatically shows up. And then there's the step-by-step directions. There's also a direct link to the lab data, so they're able to use that as well. Just click on it and it will download and be ready for use. The assessment generally comes in 3 forms, and these 3 forms are available for both the main lab and the alternate lab. So there are auto-graded questions, specifically that are algorithmic for the alternate lab, and they come generally multiple choice or just explicit number entry. And so you can choose to use that. We like the auto-graded component because I don't have to worry about grading it manually. But these other 2 options are potentially graded manually, and you can choose to use them or not. And one is a screenshot submission where they have some personally identifiable information. And the other is open-ended analysis questions where we can get to kind of some higher order things, and they're not just choosing A, B, C, or D, but they're actually answering a little bit longer or more complex or higher order question. So you can see that there. Now, when you're assigning these labs in Connect, you'll see the main lab here, and then you're going to see the alternate lab, and you're going to see the 3 assessment types. And generally what I do is each lab is 15 points. And so a third of the points, or 5 points, are the auto-graded assessment questions. And then I will also choose the auto-graded assessment for the alternate lab, and then generally the open-ended analysis questions, or the screenshot submission there. And so that's generally how I'll do, is a third with the main lab and 2/3, or 5 points versus 10 points on the alternate lab. And so that's generally going to be my mix. But here you can see I'm only requiring 1 manually graded question, and that saves me some time. If I have assigned it this way, if I click at least one of these items within the main lab, then you're going to see that it will automatically bring up the video and the step-by-step instructions. And that's by just clicking one of those assessment types here. And then we'll continue through the alternate lab. So hopefully that has been useful. Feel free to reach out to me or to any of my co-authors if we can help with this. Thank you.